Welcome to this new series entitled Crisis of Truth. I will be reading from a book that I wrote in 2006 with reference to this very topic. So let's begin with an introduction. The church is facing an epidemic that could exceed the total number of recorded epidemics and their entire casualties. This epidemic may loom greater in causation than the 1918 bubonic plague that killed nearly 25 million people in a single year, and of course the coronavirus, which we are struggling with today, with nearly 8 million people who have been affected by it. The epidemic of which I speak is not listed among the hundreds of infectious diseases by the National Center for Infectious Disease Control. Their list includes AIDS, bacterial meningitis, chickenpox, dengue fever, diphtheria, E. coli infection, influenza, measles, hepatitis types A through E, Legionnaire's disease, Lyme, malaria, mumps, pink eye, pulmonary syndrome, and tuberculosis, to name a few. The etiology of the epidemic comes from two words. The first part, eti, meaning among, and demos, meaning people. An epidemic is contagious, widespread, and prevalent. It spreads rapidly among individuals in a community at the same time. The danger of an epidemic is its ability to spread quickly, infecting and eradicating entire communities. The epidemic I speak of is not confined to a region of the world, restricted to a segment of people, or limited to a particular age group. This present epidemic crosses all borders, races, creeds, ethnic groups, ages, and faith. The epidemic I speak of is the crisis of truth. In an article by Andy Butcher, Truth Crisis Threatens Church's Future, he writes of a recent survey by the Barna Research Group. The report reveals among all adults, only 22% believe in moral absolutes, truth, while 64% thought truth was always relative to the person concerned and that person's situation. Among interviewees identified as being born again, just 32% believes in moral absolutes. 83% of all teens thought moral truth depended on the circumstances, with just 6% believing in absolute truth. Only 9% of teens identified as being born again accepted the idea of absolute truth, compared with 4% of other teens. Barna comments that the virtual disappearance of the cornerstone premises, namely God has communicated absolute truth in His Word, that is designed to be the fundamental foundation on which we base our thoughts and actions, he says, is probably the best indicator of the waning strength of the Christian church in America today. For those who claim to believe in truth, Francis Schaeffer asks a series of penetrating questions that naturally flow from Barna's survey. Question number 1, do you think our contemporaries will take us seriously if we do not practice truth? Question 2, do you think for a moment that the really serious-minded 20th century young people, our own youth as they get off to universities, who are taught in the fields of sociology, psychology, philosophy, and so on, that all is relative, will take us seriously? Question 3, in an age that does not believe the truth exists, do you really believe they will take seriously that their fathers are speaking truth and believe truth? And finally, number 4, will their fathers have credibility if they do not practice antithesis in religious matters? This scourge for rejecting truth is heard easily by what people say. That's good for you. That doesn't apply to me because, yes, but I don't think that's what it means. I don't think that is what the author meant when he wrote. We're living in a different day and age then. People don't think that way anymore today. People don't live their lives that way today. You can't expect people to live or think that way. God said that, but he really means, I know, but God wouldn't want me to suffer, to be unhappy, or to be miserable, to miss this opportunity, to deny myself. I'm not under the law anymore. I live by grace. The epidemic of truth has always been around. Began in the Garden of Eden when the serpent denied the divine revelation that if man ate of the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he would die. Genesis 3:4. Question 91 of the Heidelberg Catechism understood the plague of truth when it asked, question 91, where do I find the permanent, final, and inerrant record of these revelations? Answer, in the Holy Bible, which is God's Word, and the only certain, infallible, complete rule of truth that we have. Have you noticed the resurgence of the old 1950s television program returning to prime time, where it was recently, to tell the truth? Reflective of the day and the age that we live in, isn't it? If this epidemic is attacking the church, we must understand that the rapid spread takes place among those who are the church, the saints. Knowingly or unknowingly, saints expose other saints to the blight through books, tapes, videos, classes, seminars, conferences that are not aligned biblically. It only took one drop of rat urine to begin an epidemic of Hantar virus that devastated an entire Navajo community of May 1993. Likewise, biblical alignment must be plumb and square at all points. Remember that a little leaven corrupts the entire loaf. What does the Bible have to say about truth? Are people asking today, like Pilate of old, to Jesus, what is truth? This book is designed to define truth, show the numerous relationships that truth has, examine the characteristics of truth, develop a truth test, and conclude with how people respond to truth. Along the way, we will look at how you and I can use this information to guard truth in our lives and help people guard truth in theirs. Defining truth in the Old Testament, the word is close to the concept of faithfulness, suggesting the idea of stability, firmness, or reliability. In the New Testament, word is aletheia, meaning that which others can rely upon. With reference to God, it means God in whose word and work one can place complete confidence or truth grounded in the faithfulness of God. The word truth often occurs in the Psalms 34 times and in the writings of Paul, including the pastoral letters, 45 times. John uses the word 38 times in his gospel and epistles. When performing a word study, one of the areas to investigate is what other words do you find joined to the word under examination. As we develop the characteristics of truth, the following relationships will become evident. Truth is wedded to 11 other words throughout the Bible. Those words are sincerity, which means complete, sound, blameless, and entire without defect, unimpaired. Integrity, mercy, goodness and kindness, and deeds of devotion. Peace, justice, upright, meaning fitting, proper, straight, level, pleasing. Grace, faith, love, and loyalty. Truth is most often coupled with loving kindness, 19 times. Loving kindness is a compound Hebrew word meaning loyalty plus love or loyal love. As we examine the verses that describe truth, I will suggest ways to take the couplets and help us grow in our purity and obedience before God. A characteristic is something that is used to describe the nature or intent of an object. This is vitally important because of the relativistic approach to understanding truth in our culture today. Referring again to that Barna survey, it states, the alarming fast decline of moral foundations among young people have culminated in a one-word worldview, whatever. The result is a mentally that esteems pluralism, or a mentality that esteems pluralism, relativism, tolerance, and diversity without critical reflection of the implications of a particular view and action. Therefore, the source for describing truth must be free from bias and subjectivity. It must be the Bible, for the Bible itself can be trusted. When we get together next time, we will talk about how truth controls the thought life. I hope you will return and follow this series.